Welcome to your favorite channel for cryptocurrency market updates. I'm just effing with you guys. This is my market update for the 21st of May. So let's have a quick look at BitTensor and where it sits currently in relation to some key levels. And the main key level that we're eyeing off here at the moment is this rebound zone 0618, which has contained the price for the time being. And as I pointed out previously in my last video, that this level would be pretty contentious, and if we don't rip straight through, there is a possibility that we go down a bit lower. However, there is a great deal of relative strength for BitTensor in comparison to other cryptocurrencies, which I'll show in a little bit. But at the moment, we have bounced off the range golden pocket 0618 to 065, which is a good signal to hold as support. However, I guess the more important and pressing thing to be observing is Bitcoin testing its all-time highs. And as I stated in my previous video, there was a good chance that would be testing at least the 110k-ish level, possibly, right? And that may have been the extent of the tether dominance hitting 1618, right? The 1618 of my measured move. However, what we've noticed here is that we've made a higher high on Bitcoin, and it's remaining as a lower high, or higher low on tether dominance. So if I were to say inverse this chart, if I have the shortcut, you can see that the actual amount of tether has probably increased during this period. I don't remember the actual chart for increased stable coins, so I'm just going to avoid showing or like going through and finding that, but I'm assuming that's what's occurred here. And the time that we spend consolidating here means the more time there are stable coins to be minted, and the move to the higher end of this 1618 region could be extended in relation to the actual dollar value of Bitcoin itself. And a good example of this, just so I can provide some context, and context always helps everybody get their bearings here on the actual extent that this could move to, and something that is very similar in terms of testing of the higher end of the 1618 is the move in 2021, the start of 2021. And actually the structure of this is quite similar to our move currently with Bitcoin as well. So hopefully I can get this chart on the right hand side here to not look absolutely disgusting. Apologies. Let's find a clean Bitcoin pair. BTC USDT. Perfect. Oh my god. I'll just delete some of the stuff off here. But what we can see here is a similar move whereby we've tested a high, double bottom, and a lockout rally. Lockout rally meaning there aren't any huge pullbacks for people to get into the trade, and they're going to end up buying higher or forced to buy higher. And also obviously shorts are potentially going to get liquidated. We actually got negative funding on Bybit at the moment on Bitcoin, so people are actually trying to short this level. there's a potential here for the 1618 test for this to push up quite high, because you can see here that around the tested area here of the highs, it doesn't meet the high of, or sorry, the low of the USDTD chart. So the actual high here is before the high of the previous high of Bitcoin versus the US dollar. And the question is, are we facing a similar scenario currently? And you can see the extent of this move is quite large, right? 100% from the lows. So in these tiny sort of tether dominance retraces, we can see an extensive move, especially if there is noise within this area, right? If there's noise in the tether dominance and more stablecoins are being introduced, this might not drop as rapidly because the ratio of tether and altcoins and Bitcoin starts to get, I guess, outpaced by the amount of dollars being minted onto the market. But if they're steady and we're not minting a lot of tether, this ends up moving quite fast, and the actual price action itself doesn't move as high. So sometimes when we do get steady chops higher, whilst tether dominance is staying steady, it gives us opportunity to get closer to 1618 whilst the price starts to appreciate a lot more. Hopefully I'm making a little bit of sense here. Now let's have a look at where we sit currently with Bitcoin and tether dominance. Now we're very close again to the all-time high of Bitcoin, sort of like January 2021, and we have yet to see the lows be met on the tether dominance. So if we start to push against the all-time high, there is a little bit of room here. There's some room here to sort of do this, right? I'm just doing this as a rough example. Don't take my word for where the price ends up. But let's say we do a big push and that kind of gets us sent over the top. Let's say that's sort of the first move, right? And then we get noisy with it. So let's say we start getting noisy and going up like this. Let me change the color of this. And this ends up going sideways. And then the final move is like this. We can see where there are similarities that can be drawn with the price action here and January 2021. So there is opportunity here to kind of extend into the well, $110,000 to $130,000 range for Bitcoin before having a larger retrace like so to test this high. It would be funny if it plays out very similar to what I'm suggesting here. And then this goes down to retest 1 as I've suggested in my previous videos, and seems to be the consistent case when analyzing tether dominance. It returns to this 1 region as my measured move suggests, right? And let's actually get up the other charts here so we can follow along once again. I want to handhold here so no one is confused, right? Let's have a look. And why I've suggested that we come back to retest the highs, because that is exactly the pullback that tests the high here. And how can it go back to 1 on tether dominance? Altcoins might get brutalized during this period, and the pullback on Bitcoin might not be substantial, right? That's just an assumption, but that's what occurred during some of the moves back to 1 on tether dominance. Altcoins end up getting absolutely hammered. So hopefully I can find this quickly so I can show everybody. Right. I'll get the measured move. The measured move is just the high to the immediate low that is created here. And I know this doesn't test the 1618 flush. Right? But what occurs here is that any rejection from this region goes back to 1. And you can test this over and over again. Just watch my previous videos. And I'll copy this over. Hopefully this goes smoothly. Sorry. Perfect. Pretty much like that, right? So the initial move, the test of the new highs, which aligns with the 1618, and the red retrace back to 1, and that retests. My mind is so scattered right now. Sorry, I just came back from the gym, and then I retest this high, right? It might not test it exactly to the top. It might just brush above. So people who are bidding at this high don't really get their fill in. And perhaps this is higher, and the retrace occurs like that, right? And then we continue on to my anticipated level of $150,000 to $180,000. And that is the final move of this market, whereby we can measure, let's say, from here to here. And then it goes up to, it probably won't be a straight line, obviously, but this is the easiest way to show, simplest way to show right now. Oh, sorry. Let's draw it as a green line, like so, right? And then green line, like that, right? Wherever that 1618 hits will potentially be the top, and it might not be super simple where it moves around like that and then it goes down, right? Might be something like that. But when you know, when it enters this region, you know it's going to be a high risk scenario, and you should be on your toes and looking for your exits. But the thing is that it's going to be quite difficult because there's going to be a lot of noise in terms of the hype around the markets, because some of the largest pumps within the altcoins occur here in this region, right? In this retest of the rebound zone is when a lot of alts make their new all-time highs, and this is potentially what we're going to look for in order to make our exits, or our final exits. We might even exit beforehand at the 1618 in case we don't get the altcoin ultra rally at the end on this RZ bounce. RZ bounce being the bounce back to the 0618 on this the right shoulder right here. Right? This is all totally hypothetical, right? We're going to analyze the market as it chugs along. It might not go like this, but should there be a final move like so, that is potentially where the blue area is where the final leg of the alt market ends up sending, such as the case on the right hand side in 2021, right? Hopefully that gives some clarity on what I am anticipating for the future of the market, in the kind of midterm, and the latest term being the end of alt season. I could be completely wrong. Another outcome here as well that we need to be very, very mindful of is that the high here is in, which I think we might be pushing through because we've been trailing global liquidity almost 1-to-1 just with a 3-month lag. I know everybody has heard that to death, but that does seem to be the case at the moment. But it wouldn't be impossible to do something like this right now, right? Just red line right now, like this, to a midpoint here, right? Somewhere over here, like that. And am I saying that's going to happen? No, but be prepared for that. So there are two scenarios here. Both are bullish. I don't want to stress this enough that my position on the market and my perspective is still bullish. And those are really the two scenarios that I'm eyeing out at the moment. And we're borderline about to press above this resistance. Let's actually go here and look at the heat maps, the aggregated order book on screen. At the moment, something promising that I see already is that this resistance looks like a spoof. So someone has taken significant size off. They've gone from not significant. They've gone from 430 Bitcoin down to less than 300. And that will provide less resistance when we potentially go up and retest this. And 109,000 here has around 800 Bitcoin across exchanges. Well, the exchanges listed here, including perpetual futures. And the final resistance we see at the all-time highs at 110,000. Above that region, the next significant level would be 115 and then 120. But we'll definitely see new ask orders popping up as the price increases of people trying to short the market. And as you can see right now on Bitcoin, we do see that there is negative funding. So people are trying to short the market on Bybit in particular. I'm not going to go through all the funding rates and longs and shorts, but at the moment there is a promising sign that option 1 or scenario 1 could be playing out. I saw a comment in my previous video saying, oh, I think it's gonna, I think tether dominance is gonna go up. It doesn't matter what you think, be prepared for both of these scenarios. You should have been entered long before we made this move up, right? So hopefully that has helped you guys. And any questions, leave them down below. I'll catch you on the next one.